As tensions rise in the Middle East, one question echoes through every war room and diplomatic channel. If war breaks out, will Iran stand alone? Or will giants like Russia, China, and Turkey step in? And here's a question that might be doing the rounds in Tel Aviv. Will Russia, Turkey, and China come to Iran's rescue? How close are these three powers ideologically and geopolitically to the Islamic Republic? Let's begin with Russia. President Vladimir Putin's government has repeatedly condemned Israel's military operations against Iran, calling them a violation of international law. Russia sees Iran as a counterbalance to American influence in West Asia, and more importantly, Iran is a key strategic partner for Moscow, at a time when it is increasingly getting isolated. If the West's sanctions can be debilitating, Iranian oil can help cushion the blow. Remember, Russia is heavily dependent on revenues from crude oil and petroleum products. In the month of June, for instance, the sales brought in around $23 billion. So Russian officials are wary of any drastic rise in global crude prices. That's because it will hit their domestic economy hard. It could also force the Kremlin to spend more on social welfare schemes. You see, under Russia's current budget, if the price of oil falls below $40 a barrel, the government will have to step in with subsidies. Right now, it's trading at around $84. Any sharp increase will hurt ordinary Russians. But coming back to Iran, Russia has consistently taken a soft stance on the Islamic Republic's nuclear program. At the same time, it has never veered from condemning Israeli strikes. What explains this position? Why does Putin not want to antagonize Israel? Well, here's one reason why. Russia has historically enjoyed warm ties with Israel. For starters, it was one of the first countries to recognize Israel as a state. Secondly, there is a huge Jewish population in Russia. Thirdly, many Israelis speak Russian, and that helps people from both sides connect with each other easily. Plus, Israel is a major economic partner for Russia. Bilateral trade is worth billions of dollars, so Putin would rather not jeopardize that. Moreover, he needs Israel's cooperation on Syria. Thousands of Russian troops are stationed in that country, and Israel has carried out hundreds of airstrikes there. Naturally, Putin wants to keep Damascus in his corner, so he treads very carefully when talking about Iran. Take a look at what President Putin said on Monday. He urged all parties involved in the conflict to show restraint and seek a diplomatic solution. This is what he said. We urge all parties, primarily those involved in the military operations, to show restraint, take into account the interests of all parties involved, and above all, to seek ways to end this conflict by peaceful means. Now, is that a yes or a no to Iran? Does Putin consider this a sufficient reason to go to war with America and its allies? Here's what we make of Putin's position. Number 1, he wants to avoid a wider war with NATO. Number 2, he cannot afford to lose Iranian oil. But at the same time, he cannot afford to lose face either. So how does he balance these factors? With ambiguity. Putin is hoping that Israel will eventually stop bombing Iran. And if that happens, Russia's interests will be secured. What about Turkey? The Erdogan government has slammed Israel's attacks on Iran, calling them unacceptable. But Ankara, too, is treading cautiously. It's a NATO member and a key ally of the U.S., yet it has condemned Israel's strikes on Iranian soil. The fact is, Turkey has an ambivalent relationship with Iran. There are elements of both competition and cooperation. Take the Israel-Palestine conflict. Turkey supports the Palestinian cause, but it also enjoys warm ties with Israel. Ankara says it wants to maintain good relations with both Palestine and Israel. In fact, Erdogan was the first Muslim leader to visit Israel after Sheikh Ahmed Yassin was killed. He also played an important role in mediating between Israel and Hamas. Then we come to Syria. Turkey hosts millions of Syrian refugees. It has also launched multiple military operations inside Syria. All of this would not have been possible without tacit permission from Iran and Russia. And yet Turkey has consistently opposed Iran's growing clout in Syria. Plus, it has criticized Iranian-backed militias in Iraq. So Turkey's position on Iran is a tricky one. On the one hand, it seeks closer ties with the Gulf states. On the other hand, it wants to deepen ties with Russia. Both Iran and Russia are crucial partners for Turkey. They offer Ankara military and economic partnerships, which it simply cannot ignore. But Erdogan will not commit to sending drones to Iran. He knows the moment he does, the equation with Israel could turn. And if that happens, Turkey's hopes of joining the EU will be dashed. Plus, it will complicate Turkey's military operations in northern Iraq and Syria. Not to mention, things could get messy for Turkish businesses operating in the region. So Erdogan has to tread very carefully, and he's doing just that. Finally, let's talk about China. Like Russia and Turkey, Beijing too has condemned Israel's actions in Iran. China's Foreign Ministry spokesman Wang Wenbin said that China firmly supports Iran's right to safeguard its national sovereignty, security, and territorial integrity. Sounds like a clear-cut condemnation of Israel. And yet China has refused to side with Iran completely. Reports say it has made some sort of an offer to Israel too. So what is China's position here? For starters, China has a deep mistrust of American intentions. Washington has shown little hesitation in slapping sanctions on Chinese companies. Secondly, China has big economic interests in Israel. It is a major buyer of Israeli bonds. Plus, bilateral trade is on the rise. It touched an all-time high of $16 billion in 2022. So China cannot afford to antagonize Israel. But here's the thing. Iran is also a major player in the Belt and Road Initiative. China has invested billions of dollars there. It has built roads, ports, and railways. Beijing also buys significant amounts of oil from Iran. In April, for instance, it bought crude worth $1.3 billion from Iran. So it needs Iran to supply cheap energy. As we speak, China is suffering from a property downturn and sluggish growth. Analysts say the economic outlook for 2024 looks gloomy. So the last thing Beijing wants is a spike in oil prices. A prolonged conflict in Iran could do exactly that. And this is where China's leverage lies. It can push Iran to seek a diplomatic solution. It can also ask Israel to exercise restraint. But will China actually do that? Well, that depends on how things play out. If Iran's oil fields remain unaffected, Beijing may not intervene. But if Israel intensifies airstrikes on Iranian soil, China could push for talks. Either way, it will be more interested in playing a constructive role rather than deploying its military. So to answer our opening question, will Russia, China, and Turkey support Iran? Well, Russia's position is clear. It has sided with Iran but stopped short of pledging military support. Turkey has condemned Israel's attacks, but it refuses to send drones to Iran. China, on the other hand, has condemned Israel, but has not said whether it will help Iran. What we can say is this: none of these three nations wants a wider war. Sure, they can all condemn Israel, hurl abuses, and threaten sanctions, but remember, there are limits to all of that. None of them wants to antagonize America and its allies. And that's the biggest challenge for Iran right now. Now, some reports say the U.S. will deploy the USS Gerald R. Ford to the region. That's America's most powerful aircraft carrier. It has a large complement of fighter jets. What message does that send to Iran? Simple. Do not escalate the conflict. And that's precisely what Iran should do. A lot of experts have already spoken about this, including former U.S. officials. They say Iran has suffered significant military setbacks. Its nuclear program has been crippled, so it must now seize the opportunity for talks. Instead of more airstrikes and missile attacks, what Iran needs is a viable compromise. That could mean accepting a UN-backed peace plan, or it could mean extending the nuclear talks in Vienna. How do you think the world should handle the Iran crisis? Let us know in the comments. Thanks for watching. Like, comments, and share this video. and subscribe to the channel.